Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to thank each and every one of you. I know December tends to be a very busy time of the year for most of us. So thank you for finding the time, and I hope you will not regret this investment. Uh, so our session today is in English, but in the chat session, you can feel free to ask your questions either in English, Russian, or Ukrainian. And my colleagues, Ruslan and Hannah, are there, and they'll be happy to take your questions in the chat session. And of course, I will be more than happy to answer most interesting questions in the Q&A session in the second part of our webinar. So once again, thank you for joining us today. And our topic today is practical issues of accounting for IT entrepreneurs. But first of all, what do we mean by practical? To me, Warren Buffett is a pretty practical person and one of the greatest investors and entrepreneurs of our time. He produced consistent returns of over 20% per annum over the period of 50 years or so. And it keeps amazing me how much Buffett actually talks about accounting in his writings, in his speeches. And he says that accounting is the language of business. And I think it says a lot about our job and our profession as accountants. Just as writers use words to tell stories, we accountants use numbers to tell stories. For me, every financial statement, every annual report tells a story. Your accounting tells a story about your business, and most importantly, a story about you. Long gone are the days when you just did accounting for the taxman. Although, of course, no question about that, the taxman is quite an important person in the life of entrepreneur. And there's two things you cannot avoid: tax and account, and tax and death and taxes, right? But you will be amazed, but actually how many people will be interested in the story your accounting is telling. Your bankers will read it, your customers will read it, your employees and potential employees will read it. So my question for you this afternoon is, what sort of story is your accounting telling? Is this an exciting story? Is this a true story or a fiction story? Is this a story that can make people trust you and follow you to the end of the world? And no, it is not your accountant who is telling the story. You are telling the story. Your accountant is actually there to help you create the best possible version of the story. So the best story is born when the client and the accountant work closely together. Over the years, we've had the privilege of working with many IT entrepreneurs from Ukraine and other countries. And of course, it has been a learning experience. So I'm here to share with you some of the things that we have actually learned together. And I think I could spend hours talking about all the things we have learned, but since it's already the end of our event and we only have about a half an hour, I want to talk about 3 topics. And these topics are the ones that I consider most important, and maybe the topics where most of the mistakes are made. So we want to make sure you avoid the mistakes and that your accounting is telling the right story, the story you want it to tell. And so let's talk about these three topics. So these are VAT, value-added tax, periodization, and last but not the least, communication between the client and the accountant. And I want to remind you once again, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to use the chat section and ask your questions, and my colleagues will be happy to answer them, or I will take these questions in the Q&A session of our webinar. So let's get to the business. And our first issue is VAT, value-added tax. And the reason I chose it as a number one is because it's probably the largest single issue where most of the mistakes are made. Most of the risks are incurred for new entrepreneurs. So if you want to get your accounting story right, I would suggest you make sure to get the VAT right. So the general rules for VAT in Estonia are simple. If your Estonian company issues an invoice to another company in Estonia or to a private person in Estonia, you should add the rate of 20% VAT. And for most of you, this would be probably an unusual situation, since most of the companies of the e-residence are global, with global business. So you rarely issue invoices and sell your services to customers in Estonia. For most of you, the world is your market. So this first instance is probably will not occur to you so often. But the same rule applies also if you issue an invoice to a private person residing in one of the EU countries. If your Estonian company issues an invoice to a private person in France, in Italy, in Germany, Cyprus, you should add the rate of VAT 20%. And if you issue an invoice to another company, to a corporate customer in another EU country, then what matters here is whether or not your business partner has a VAT number. So if there's no VAT number, you should still add 20% VAT to the amount of the invoice. And if VAT number exists, if your partner does have a VAT number, then you just add 0% VAT rate to the amount of invoice in case you sell goods, or in case of most of the services that you sell. And the 0% VAT is applied to so-called intra-community transactions. And there's one tricky thing over there. The VAT number that your business partner provides should be valid. And the way to establish it and to verify it is to go to a website called VS, the website provided by the European Commission, and actually type in your business partner's VAT number, and then you get the response whether it is valid or not. And it is important to apply this procedure every time you issue an invoice, because what happens if the VAT number that your business partner has provided to you is not valid is that you issue an invoice with 0% VAT rate, and then you end up paying all the VAT from your own funds. So this is not where you want to end up. So make sure you verify your business partners' VAT numbers. And of course, if you export goods or services outside the European Union, so you don't add VAT to the amount. So again, VAT is zero. So when does it become necessary to get a VAT number in Estonia? Please bear in mind that VAT number is not automatically assigned at the registration of a new company in Estonia. And moreover, you do not even have to get the VAT number if the sales of your company to Estonian or EU clients do not exceed 40,000 euros per year. If you choose so, you may voluntarily register your company as a VAT payer and get a VAT number. For registration, you need to submit an application to the Estonian Tax and Customs Board. It can be done with within the EMTA system using, of course, your e-Residency card. The board may ask you to justify the need for a VAT number. So they may ask you to provide documents, contracts, invoices, anything that can be evidence of your entrepreneurial activity. And in case your sales in Estonia or EU exceed 40,000 euros per year, a company must register as a VAT payer, get a VAT number, and from then on, submit monthly VAT returns. Now, here's a tricky one for you. The so-called status of an entity liable to VAT with limited liability. If your company purchases services from outside the European Union, and this is what most IT companies do, you establish your company in Estonia, you invoice your clients from the Estonian entity, and then you maybe hire some key people here in Tallinn, but the bulk of your development activities happens in the Ukraine, in other Eastern European country, in another Eastern European country, and so you purchase services from outside the European Union, and this is where many IT companies make a mistake. So what's the common rule? The common rule is that if you purchase services outside the European Union in the amount of at least 10,000 euros per year, you must register a so-called entity liable to VAT with limited liability and pay, attention, 20% from the cost of the received services as a value-added tax. This, of course, decreases your profit margin. Therefore, you should check whether you have the grounds to register as a person fully liable to VAT. And if you register as a person fully liable to VAT, as opposed to liable with limited liability, the services purchased outside the European Union will have to be declared. However, they will be exempt from VAT in Estonia. So you don't pay VAT on the purchased services. So, as I said, many IT companies incorporated in Estonia make this common mistake. They purchase services from individuals, entrepreneurs, FOPs, located outside the EU, but these companies fail to register either as a full VAT payers or as VAT payers with limited liability. And so what happens? What happens is afterward, while preparing an annual report, the managers of these companies get an unpleasant surprise in the form of large amounts of VAT to be paid for the previous period. So how do you avoid this? How do you avoid this unpleasant situation? Basically, you don't want to miss the moment when you have to register as a VAT liable person. So either as a VAT payer with limited liability, or preferably with VAT payer with full liability, because in this latter case, you avoid paying 20% tax on the amount of services purchased from outside the European Union. So basically, it boils down to getting a good accountant and making sure you prepare monthly accounting records. In this case, a good accountant will alert you in due time when you are supposed to get a VAT number. So if you have questions about this, I know these things may seem tricky, so if you have questions, just feel free to type them in the Q&A session, and you can use English, Russian, or Ukrainian. We can answer in all of these languages. So the next issue I would like to discuss with you is periodization. And again, what's the basic rule? The basic rule, or the basic notion, is quite simple. Your costs should be booked in the same period as the revenues these costs generated. It's easy to understand using the example of goods. If you purchase some goods that you intend to resell, the cost is not incurred at the moment when you pay for goods. When you pay for a good, you get an asset in the balance sheet, a prepayment, and then and eventually an inventory of stock. And the cost you incur at the moment when you sell the good. So you account for revenue and you account for cost, and hopefully receive a profit as a result. So actually the same principle should be applied to services. When you pay your developers, your vendors, for the services they provided, and say you paid in 2019, and then you invoiced your client in 2020. So what should have happened is, when you paid your vendors, when you paid your suppliers, when you paid the private entrepreneurs that provided the services to you, you shouldn't book these payments as costs. Rather, you should book them as prepayments, as an asset on your balance sheet. And then when you invoice your customer, you get a revenue, and then you incur cost, and again, hopefully, get a profit as a result. So this means you should get your periodization right. And again, this is an area where many IT companies which we worked with didn't get it right at the first place. So the reason for that is that you basically send invoices to your accountant, cost invoices, sales invoices, and it is not obvious to the accountant to which sale the cost refer to which period this or that invoice, this or that cost should refer to. And basically, what are the risks this involves? What are the risks this entails? Most probably there is no tax risks if you get your periodization wrong, for a simple reason. There's no corporate tax in Estonia. Even if you get a huge profit in some period, it will not be taxed, even if you get it due to wrong periodization. But there are other risks involved, and basically what happens is you get your financial statements wrong, your P&L statement, your balance sheet tell the wrong story. You again, in this example that I brought, you probably will have a huge loss in 2019 and then a huge profit in 2020. And anyone who is reading your financial statements, again, your bankers, your customers, they will have a hard time understanding what is actually going on in the company. So if you want to avoid that, if you want your financial statements to show a true and fair picture of your company's financial position, if you want your financial statements to tell the true story of your company, you should get periodization right. And this brings us to the third point of our webinar, which is communication. And it seems to me that I cannot stress the importance of communication enough. And people keep saying that the accounting profession is going to disappear soon due to automation. And I both agree and disagree. I think we will see, and we constantly are seeing many of the routine functions of the accounting profession automated. But then what we're also seeing is that many of the issues that come up in our clients' businesses are not routine. The world is changing so rapidly. Business is changing so rapidly. And especially in IT, we see so many businesses built around the needs, products, services, and realities that didn't even exist like 5 years ago. So it is so important to make sure you and your accountant are on the same page with regard to understanding what is actually going on in your business. So in most cases, if you start your Estonian company and next talk to your accountant after 2 years, when you suddenly remember that you need to file your annual report, there is a 90% chance that you are in some kind of trouble. So my advice both to clients and accountants is to get in touch, as I said, at least on a monthly basis, Of course, you need to establish the process of the exchange of documents. And nowadays, we mostly use cloud services for that, so the documents are exchanged seamlessly. But again, there is a trap there. What we see happen most of the time is that some documents get uploaded in the folder in the cloud. The accountant processes them, closes the period, and then the client adds more documents to the same folder, to the same period, and the result is a mess. And the simplest way to avoid it is basically to talk. And there are, of course, different ways to do it. What we've used is simple things like establishing a common chat room between the client, their local employees responsible for accounting, and our Estonian accounting team here. And in these chat rooms, we can get questions answered easy and fast. And what also helps is establishing regular video conferences or conference calls with the client, between the accountant and the client, and then just talk things over, because there's so many issues that arise just for the simple reason that the accountant and clients don't talk enough. So simple things like chat rooms or regular video conferencing or conference calls help avoid so many problems with periodization, with taxation, and basically enable the client and accountant work together towards the goal, to making sure that the accounting statements, the annual reports, the VAT returns, tax returns tell the best version of the story of your business possible. So, as I said, I can't seem to stress communication between the client and accountant enough. So this brings us to the end of our presentation, and I will be happy to take any questions that you have written. Again, a question that I get most of the time, regardless of the topic I'm speaking on, is a question like Mikhail is asking, who has experience with opening bank account if you're not a resident of Estonia? Is it possible? Bank accounts is something that everybody is interested in, and that e-residents sometimes are most concerned with. So my short answer to this, yes, it is possible. My bit longer answer to this is there are two things you can do. First of all, the quick solution is to get an account with a payment service provider, with a PSP, like Payoneer, like TransferWise, like Paysera, or there are many other service providers. You can find many of them on e-Residency marketplace. So these are the quickest solution for e-residents to get accounts. An account with PSP can actually solve most of the issues you face. You need to get paid, you need to pay your suppliers, and this you can do with an accountant with a PSP. Many of you still want to get an account with a traditional bank in Estonia, and for those of you who belong to the second group, I suggest to consider either relocating to Estonia, which is one of the options, or establishing a permanent presence here in the form of a physical office, hiring local employees, finding local business partners, and in this case, the local banks will be much more interested in servicing your business if you have a local presence here in Estonia. Another good question. Andrei Yegorov is asking, me and my 3 colleagues are planning to launch a company in Estonia. So we are 4 founders with e-Residency. I noticed that majority of service providers prefer to deal with 1 owner, founder, not 4. Nevertheless, we want to have 4 founders. What would be your recommendations regarding selecting a service provider who can help? Well, we're not here to promote any particular service provider, but at this point can just reassure you that here at Magrat, we will be more than happy to help you with your request. You can have 4 founders, 5 founders, 10 founders. We can still serve you and provide the service. And of course, it's not only us. Most of serious service providers will, for them, it will not be an issue. So you can use your e-Residency, which is the most straightforward way, or you can use if one of the owners is not an e-resident, does not have e-Residency yet, you can use notarized powers of attorney. But in any event, this is possible, and this should not be a problem. And yeah, please get in touch with via email or via our WhatsApp channel, and we'll be happy to help you. Okay, I have another question here. Igor Tkachenko is asking, all income from deals goes to payments for contractors. The amount is more than 40,000 per year. Is it legal? EX contract for 10,000 goes to 10 contractors, 1,000 each. Igor, I probably need to get more details to answer your question, but of course, it is legal. I mean, you can have, as long as you provide legitimate services, you can have as many contractors as you want, and you can pay them whatever you agreed. If it is more than 40,000 euros per year, it is okay. What I was saying is basically, if your contractors are outside the EU, and if you buy services in the amount of more than 10,000 euros per year, then you should register either as a VAT liable company or a limited VAT liable company. So in order to provide you with the exhaustive answer, we need to have more details. So please feel free to contact us via email or via WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to help you. Another question is, who from e-Residency can provide consultations? For example, some templates of documents to start with. I mean, is it possible to walk through the process of my own reading website, following consultations, or it is too complex and tricky to better involve partners, service providers? Well, if you're talking about establishing your company in Estonia, basically you can do everything on your own. There is only two things you need from your service provider. You need a contact person in Estonia, so you need to choose one of the service providers that are listed on the website of e-Residency, who can provide you with contact person service. Contact person is an official entity who is responsible for your communication with the government. If the government cannot reach you for some reason, they will use your contact person to reach you. So by law, you're supposed to have a contact person. So this is the only thing you need from a service provider, actually, to get their consent to act as your contact person. All other things you can do on your own. Another thing is your legal address. Again, you can show your address in the country where you live as the place of management of the company. So this is not compulsory. So basically, what you need from a service provider is a contact person service. All other things you can do on your own. But of course, we or any other service provider will be happy to help you and walk you through the process of establishing your Estonian company. Get in touch via email or via WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to help you in the process. So I think we have more questions. We have more questions here. Okay, I think we have. I will switch to Ukrainian now. Моя дочка працює у невеличкій фірмі по виготовленню шкіряних виробів. Оскільки реєстрація фірми є складною процедурою, то виникають певні труднощі. Чи можна було б цей бізнес зареєструвати в Естонії, працювати в Україні? Так, швидка відповідь: можна зареєструвати ваш бізнес у Естонії. Ви можете отримати e-Residency з посольства Естонії у Києві і зареєструвати потім свою компанію, естонську компанію онлайн. Тобто це можна зробити, багато e-резидентів з України зробили це вже, зробили свої компанії в Естонії, працюють в Україні, а їх компанії знаходяться у Естонії. Тобто це добре рішення для вас і вашої дочки. Тобто, якщо у вас є питання щодо процесу реєстрації, будь ласка, звертайтеся по електронній пошті або по WhatsApp, який ви бачите на слайді, і ми будемо раді вам допомогти з цим процесом. Так, еще у нас есть вопрос. Если компания покупает дигитальные услуги у стран вне Евросоюза, надо ли с покупки платить налог? Как я сказал, если компания не налогообязанная и она купила услуги за пределами ЕС, то больше, чем на 10 тысяч евро, то компания обязана зарегистрироваться ограниченным налогообязанным по налогу с оборота и в этом случае уплатить налог. Что не очень приятно обычно, поэтому нужно проверить, есть ли возможность и есть ли основания зарегистрироваться собственным налогообязанным, полным налогообязанным, получить VAT-номер, и в этом случае вы должны будете декларировать электронные услуги, которые вы закупаете извне Евросоюза, но не нужно будет платить с них налог. Поэтому зависит от того, есть ли у вас основания получить VAT-номер, но в любом случае, если вы закупаете электронные услуги извне Евросоюза, то необходимо зарегистрироваться либо ограниченным налогообязанным, либо налогообязанным по НДС. Так. Как можно заказать у вас бухгалтерские услуги, как происходит подача отчетов? Услуги заказать очень просто. Вы можете связаться с нами по одному из тех контактов, которые указаны здесь на слайде, по электронной почте или по WhatsApp, и мы уточним ваши нужды, ваши потребности, и будем рады сделать вам предложение. Что касается подачи отчетов, то если у вас есть карта e-резидента, то вся подача отчетов проходит электронно через систему EMTA или через портал предпринимателя в Эстонии. Если у вас еще нет карты e-резидента, мы советуем всем нашим клиентам получить ее, заказать ее. Это занимает примерно месяц. Вы можете заказать ее онлайн, получить ее в посольстве Эстонии, в той стране, где вы живете. И эта карта резидента поможет вам в управлении в администрировании вашей эстонской компании, полностью все администрирование вашей эстонской компании вы можете вести онлайн с помощью вашей карты резидента и с помощью вашего сервис-провайдера. Вопрос, есть ли возможность оформлять поездку при посещении Эстонии, имея эстонскую компанию? Сейчас есть различные ограничения в связи с ковидом, но короткий ответ – да. Если вы имеете эстонскую компанию и ваша поездка связана с работой вашей эстонской компании, вы можете оформить визу для приезда в Эстонию. Чтобы узнать детали, пожалуйста, свяжитесь с нами по одному из контактов, указанных на нашем последнем слайде. Наше время, я вижу, уже подходит к концу. Я еще раз благодарю всех тех, кто
хто був сьогодні з нами. Дякую усім, хто знайшов час та був з нами на цьому вебінарі. I thank you once again for taking the time, for finding the time to stay with us and be with us on this webinar. If you still have questions, or if you think of new questions, please feel free to say these contact details, and we will be happy to get back to you and answer your questions and help you with establishing or running your EU company. Thank you, and hope to see you soon.